Alrighty. Now I'm going to try and put this on a pillow. I'm writing this on an iPad with my index finger. Okay, so basically, the problem with holding an iPad is you get all kinds of crunchy noises from the microphone. So I'm putting it on a pillow and I'm trying not to touch anything except the screen. We'll see how this works. This is about currencies. Basically how to understand there's several different ways to present currency rates, and so it's about the currency markets and rates. And currencies are traded by major banks only, and if you go into your local bank, they will correspond with a major bank and get the currency for you ahead of time if you're going to go on a trip. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. It's amazing what debit cards have done. I remember being amazed about 15 years ago when my sister called from Germany and said, I had to go on an emergency trip to Germany, and they told me to get my husband to pack my bag and give me my passport, and he was supposed to meet me at the airport, and I had to get on a plane, and I got here and I realized I didn't have any, and this was back before the euro was actually trading. So she was like, I didn't have any Deutschmarks, and she said, so I went to an ATM and I put my debit card in, and believe it or not, it handed out Deutschmarks. And anyway, later on, it showed up on her statement with the exchange rate transaction completed and everything, and she was amazed. And nowadays, that's very common. You can just go use your ATM card. But you may want to travel with some currency on you. Us old people kind of like to do that. And so if you were to want to do that in a small amount, you could do that locally. Your local bank would correspond with a major bank, say in New York. And the big banks trade. And currencies, the actual currency is, the exchange rate of the currency is the price in terms of another currency. And it does not count any of those little local transactions where you say, yeah, I think I want to take 500 euros with me. No, it is basically based upon large transactions that small consumers don't do. It's mostly transactions between banks and companies, and those things are what are included in the supply and demand calculations. And I'll explain all of that in a series of videos. Okay? So you walk into a bank, and this is what you see on the screen is all lit up on the display. And you're going, spot, forward, what is this? Spot is if you're trading today for immediate delivery. So you want this transferred to your account, you want this handed to you in euros right now in paper money. That's spot. We do it today. Forward means you contract now to do a financial transaction later at a locked-in rate. So before we go farther with that, let's look at what bid and offer mean. I didn't leave a column to show what this is, but let's say it's the British pound, okay? So the British pound, let's say it's trading, and they quoted it, say, 156. You walk in, and you see bid and offer, and you think, who's bidding and who's offering? That's from the bank's point of view. And what they're saying is, we will buy it from you. We bid this. We will buy from you at $1.55. We will sell it to you. We'll offer it to you at $1.58. Okay? And the difference in the prices is called the spread, and that's how they make money on the transactions. And you may say, but it's only, what is that, 3 cents? Well, if we're talking about major banks making massive transactions for corporations in international trade, that can be a lot of money. 3 cents on a million units of currency can be a lot of money, right? So they make their money, and if you trade currency in an airport location, the spread is wider because you're more desperate. So plan ahead if you really want to transfer funds before a trip. Plan ahead. Now, the main reason that people like to trade currency, because we have debit cards now, and they will in most industrialized or developed markets, and even in some a lot of emerging markets, they will give you the local currency when you use your United States debit card. But these forward rates, I kind of forgot where I was going with that. I'll remember it halfway through. But basically, we don't really do a lot of spot trading anymore just for our own travel. These are big markets. And in business, forward rates are important because this is how you hedge. You might be saying, why should I hedge? Well, if you have your own business and you're your own boss and you're not going to get fired because the internal rate of return was wrong, or you analyzed a project and you said that it had positive net present value and it was going to basically pay us $2 million in positive net present value. But unfortunately, it was a trade with a company in Europe, and you either have to pay or receive euros instead of dollars at some time in the next 30 days from now, 60 days from now. Wow. Things can move quickly. This particular semester, I'm filming this in 2016. I may reuse it. But in 2016, Russia has just recently suffered a huge decline in their currency, the ruble. And it went down fast. And it can happen. I remember several years ago, Turkey, the Turkish lira, just plummeted because they had had a big earthquake. And they had to rebuild dams and bridges and sewer systems, and it was what did they do? They printed money. It was terrible. I had a Turkish student that his parents every couple weeks sent him the same amount of Turkish lira, but the bank gave him less and less dollars as the semester went along. And so what happens, let's go back to you sitting in your office, and the boss says, should we sign the contract? Are we going to make a profit? And you give him a big give him or her a big thumbs up. So you give the bosses a big thumbs up. And then something happens and the currency goes the wrong direction for your profits. And we end up with a $2 million loss. You're fired, right? Or either that or you look really bad and you never get promoted. The way most people in business deal with this, business people deal with it by contracting with a bank to buy or sell a currency forward so many days. And they have longer contracts. And they need them because some companies build large things. I mean, what if you're dealing with Airbus? You're buying for an airline and you've ordered airplanes to be delivered next year or 2 years from now. You can negotiate long contracts with banks. they may not be flashing on the screen up there farther than 90 days, but you can negotiate a forward contract. And so let's say you have to buy 6 Airbus aircraft for your airline delivered in 3 years. You can negotiate now to have the euros to pay then. So you don't you sign the contract now to have them later. So you don't need the money now to make the deal. You wait until it's time to pay, but you get the contract and you lock it in. Now, this takes your risk and puts it on somebody else, and somebody else is going to charge you for it. So there's a premium attached to these prices. So forward prices are going to have a higher cost to them, whether you're buying or selling in the future, so that you can have it when you need it. It's going to be more expensive. And I read a study, and bear with me while my tired old mind tries to remember the exact wording. It was from the 1980s. Some finance professors looked at the premiums, the forward rates, basically the forward premiums, and they said that this was the best, least biased indicator of the direction of society's knowledge of future direction of currency values. In other words, you could not hire an economics firm to forecast what the British pound is going to do better than looking at the forward rates. And that's basically because people are putting their money where their mouth is, right? Again, it's supply and demand. If people think it's going to go down, they may behave differently in their purchases or sales in the future than if they think it's going to go up, and that affects supply and demand. And these things, there's supply and demand for forward contracts as well. And so it doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen in the future. It means that the forward rate is an unbiased, statistical term, indicator of basically future knowledge, of current knowledge of future currency prices. So in other words, what we know today, we may not know about the major terrorism attack or the war or whatever. We may not know about those things, but as of all the information today, the forward price is your best indicator, which basically means they found this out. That wording was exact, and it all means statistical things. It means basically that you don't come out ahead doing this. You don't come out behind doing this statistically. If you did it over a long career and you hedged and hedged and hedged and hedged, or you didn't hedge and hedge and hedge and hedge, statistically you should be in the same place. In other words, your loss and your expected loss and your expected premium are going to offset each other. In other words, we could lose let's say we would lose 5,000 because of the currency changing based upon current information, or the person who has to take this risk based upon current information charges us 5,000 to take the risk for us. But the thing that makes it something that we want to do in business is that at least we don't get fired if we have that $5,000 charge. We know it. We know it's going to cost us an extra $5,000 to hedge. We write it down. It's part of our calculations. That's better than surprise, right? So that's why people hedge. It's not because you really save money. Okay? So to be more accurate about what we do here, if, let's say, we're going to have to pay a European company €1,000,000 30 days from now, we can get a forward contract that says that in 30 days the bank will give us €1,000,000 and we'll pay them the price that we agreed on today. Got it? Okay, so let's see if I've forgotten. I've got a little list of things I want to talk about. Immediate delivery, forward transaction, bid offer. Okay, we got all that. Next slide. Okay, now we need to talk about direct versus indirect. Sometimes you will go online, and on some of the currency trading websites, you will see something that's not in your book, and it's a matrix where they list, the dollar, the yen, the euro. I actually think they draw it through there, but anyway, that's the euro. Let's see. And the British pound. And then they'll also list them the other direction. The dollar, the yen, the euro, the pound, and other currencies. And so they have this big matrix. And of course, it's about the trading prices. But of course, when they trade against each other, it's 1-to-1. So the column in the row that corresponds to the same country is always 1. But you'll find something like, now I'm sitting here talking off the cuff about this, and I don't have a calculator, so I'm gonna pretend that the dollar price of a pound would say be $2. But if you look at the other place where they link up, it's going to be in the pound price of $1, which is what? 50 cents? So this confuses people, especially travelers that don't understand currencies, because your home currency is often discussed. It's called the direct quote. But the reciprocal price is the other country's view. So if we're in America and we're looking at the price of the pound, we're going to look at the dollar price of the pound. So we're basically going to be looking at dollars per pound. So how many dollars it take to buy a pound? Well, in this case, I said 2. Okay? Actually, it's usually trades mid-range, like $1.50 something, $1.60 something, $1.49, But just to make my math easy, dollar price of a pound, $2. If you're in England and you're wanting to come back, they are concerned with how many pounds it takes to buy $1, because you're trading your pounds in to get the dollar, right? So the British are concerned. So what's direct for us is indirect for them, and what's indirect for us is direct for them. So basically, they would quote what we would call the indirect price, which would be the amount of pounds it takes per dollar, which is the reciprocal. You see it? So the reciprocal, if this is 2/1, right, then this one's 1/2, and which is what? 0.5. But that confuses people because they're like, well, wait a minute, which price is the right price? There's a lot of convention, and your book tried to make it easy for you and showed everything in direct. Let me see if I can find that that. But that's not the way it's quoted online. It's not the way it's quoted like in the Wall Street Journal. Although I don't even know if they do. I look at them online occasionally, but I don't even know if the Wall Street Journal even has a print version of currency rates anymore. Reading foreign exchange quotations, page 364 of the Carbaugh book, 15th edition, has all of the exchange rates in foreign currency. Okay, let's see. The UK pound, at the time of this printing, they've got $1.60, 0.16039. The next day, 0.16047. The next day. Oh, actually, they do. They've got two columns there. Okay, they've got in U.S. dollars and per U.S. dollars. Good, good, good. I didn't read their columns well. So we've got Wednesday and Tuesday in U.S. dollars, which would be our direct, and per U.S. dollars, which would be the other country's direct. Okay? That's good. I thought they were just doing it all in dollars because I looked at the first two columns. Okay. But a lot of times when you get a quote, certain things are by convention. The Japanese yen in terms of dollars are a little bit over a penny right now. And for years they were always just under a penny. So it's been coming up. But by convention, it's quoted in yens per dollar. So most of the time when you hear someone say, oh, the yen's at 98 or the yen's at 107 or something, $1.07 or something, and so they're quoted backwards from Britain, where it's the amount of dollars per pound. Just listening on the radio, it's just habit that certain currencies are quoted indirect for America, probably because the yen is so tiny. I mean, it's just barely, it's like worth a fraction more than a penny right now. So it's a lot easier to quote how many yens per dollar, 98 or something, than to quote 0.010151. So but once you've studied currencies enough and you've been on the job and you're dealing with your particular countries, you can figure out which one is which. Because sometimes it's amazing, they don't even tell you. I mean, you'll look at a list of things and they'll have 98 for the yen and they'll have $1.60 for the pound. And they don't tell you which is dollars per pound and which one's yen per dollar. Am I confusing you? But actually, just looking at this table again, 364 is well written. Good job. So they do have the other version, and they're reciprocals of each other. That's the main thing you need to know there. I talked about hedging, but I need to talk about something called a currency cocktail. Some large corporations create their own currency cocktail in which they own accounts denominated in different currencies. And what they're doing is basically creating a portfolio. By now, I'm making this for the MBA class, so you've had investments and you understand about diversification and how if one stock goes up, the other one goes down, overall the portfolio stays fairly stable. The more stocks you have, the more diversification. You can get rid of most risk that's specific to individual stocks. You can't get stuff that's systematic. You can't get rid of systematic risk. If the whole system collapses or something, we got a problem. But we get rid of risk specific to Apple computers or Apple Corporation. So So this is the same idea. And banks, or maybe you didn't know that, you can have bank accounts at the major banks denominated in currencies of other countries. So if I move to Ireland, they have the euro. I could keep my bank account there in dollars if I wanted. I'm not sure why I would. This word's supposed to say cocktail, and it doesn't. It says dactyl or something. Currency cocktail. Let's see if I can clean that up. I'm writing with my finger here on an iPad. I'm sure you're familiar with this yourselves. Lots of fun. So a currency cocktail is basically a portfolio of currencies. You and I can't tell Simmons that I want, half in the euro and half in the dollar in one account. We could tell a major bank that we want an account in euros and an account in dollars, and we could figure out the optimum weighting, just like you could do a Markowitz optimization on a portfolio. You can do the Markowitz optimization on currencies. I have not read where banks are allowing major customers to have a mixed cocktail of currencies in one account. That doesn't mean that someone like Donald Trump couldn't get it if he wanted it. But I'm just saying, most of the readings I've read were saying just have several bank accounts and keep the weighting of the total cash investment in each one optimum, and then run an optimization program, and that can stabilize your risk from currency, just like having a portfolio of stocks is better than having one stock. It's something to think about if you ever are in charge of your own affairs, and you have plenty of money and lots of risk internationally, or if you're running a big corporation and you're not going to you won't get fired for a currency cocktail because there's going to be a lot less surprises. But it's not well known outside of major corporation, major rich people circles. So, as you move into those circles, be aware that that's something you can do. Also, banks aren't going to do that for small customers either. Whenever you read that, oh yeah, you can denominate stuff in euros, in an account. If you're keeping $300 there, they're not bothering with you. They're not doing that for you. Their minimum balance is going to be outrageous for doing that, because they're having to basically keep a currency on their books and do all the paperwork and all of the stuff associated with that, and assume the risks of transactions. And so that's going to be something they're not going to do unless you're a big customer. Okay, now there is and there may be others, but the big important one, SDR. It's funny. You look it up on Wikipedia, they don't mention what it was called even as far back as like the early 80s. They were calling it Swiss drawing rights. And now it is called special drawing rights. And that probably has to do with the fact that Swiss banks were doing this after the Bretton Woods Agreement in the 40s, after World War II, There was an agreement on currencies in Bretton Woods. There's a wonderful place to go stay for vacations and things in Bretton Woods. Is it New Hampshire or is it? It's in New England, Bretton Woods. You can look that up. But they had an agreement. They called it the Bretton Woods Agreement, and it was in effect in international currency markets until Nixon took us out of it in 1970 or 71, and it fixed exchange rates for a while, and Nixon took us out, and since then exchange rates have floated. Anyway, back to the SDR. Used to be called Swiss drawing rights, now it's special drawing rights, and it is a currency cocktail. In October, they're going to add the Chinese yuan. October 2016, I might say that because the next time this MBA class rolls around a few years from now, it may be 2019, and they will have been in for years. So in October 2016, the Chinese yuan will be added, and at that point, we will have we'll have the dollar, the euro, the British pound, the Chinese yuan, and the Japanese yen. So that's 5 countries. And this SDR, and it has a symbol for this currency of XDR. I guess SDR was taken. But anyway, it's SDR for special drawing rights, and the symbol is XDR. This is used in places where there's a lot of international risk. For example, for decades and decades, the SDR has been used in maritime questions, in international maritime law, where they want to make sure that everybody understands how much is the maximum you pay for death on the high seas, for example. We're not going to just say in dollars. We need a currency unit that avoids risk to other countries. So the SDR was designed, and it basically has a proportion in it, a weight in it that is optimized. Is it every 5 months? It's 5 something. It's optimized often, and they changed the weighting of the currencies in it using the same Markowitz portfolio optimization method you learned in investments for stocks. And so the computer program says we have the least risk in this program when we have, say 0.21 US dollars and 0.19 Chinese yuan and 0.23 British, I forgot what I started with, euros, etc., as a proportion of the weight of the portfolio. So you have five currencies, and some of them may have more weight than others because some are more volatile or less volatile. Some tend to move in other directions. Remember, in stocks, I hope I'm not confusing you too much, but in stocks, for example, we talked about negative beta stocks or commodities that moved in opposite directions from your stocks help to reduce the risk. So There are currencies that tend to stick together, and there are currencies that tend to move in opposite directions from each other. And so these programs figure it all out, and optimize, just like the Markowitz. It is the Markowitz portfolio model. So then you have these currency units, which are a mix of currencies, and they're called SDRs. Okay. They're used in maritime law. They are used to pay fees at the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal. They're very rarely used for any kind of private, Apple computer doesn't pay their vendors with SDRs. This is usually used for measuring things. The Bank for International Settlements uses it, and it's often made between countries. So that's a good question. At the time I'm filming this, the U.S. is paying Iran some of the Shah's money that has been locked up by us forever, since 1979-80. It was the Shah's money that we seized so that the Ayatollah Khomeini couldn't have it. And it's been tied up and everything, and as part of this nuclear missile deal, we're giving this money back to Iran. And usually in situations like that, the Bank for International Settlements pays these sorts of settlements country to country with SDRs. So they say we're going to pay them so many $100 million, but in actuality, the Bank for International Settlements, that settles up between countries, pays SDRs. So they're going to get a currency unit that's a mix of 5 currencies. Well, 4 currencies at the moment. So, have I scared you enough? Let's see what else we got here. Forwards, and I'm just going through and looking at things. Oh, another way you could hedge is with options. Foreign currency options are available in Chicago. Options are traded in Chicago. They're not traded in New York. There's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the Chicago Board of Trade, and they are so exciting. If you're a capitalist, if you enjoy watching the process of supply and demand trading right there, the options markets and the futures markets, corn and there are currency futures as well, but the options markets and futures are just so exciting because everybody that's out there is trading for themselves. Now you've got people working for the big brokerages that are trading for their clients, and so you may start there working for Scott Trade or somebody, or somebody that clears for Scott Trade. But there are a huge number of independent people who have bought seats on these exchanges, and like, for example, the Chicago Board of Trade. Everybody that's with a different company wears a different kind of jacket, because the rules that were made up in the ancient times when the Board of Trade and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, when they were started, the Board of Trade, for example, says nothing about a dress code except that you have to wear a jacket. And so there are people with Superman patterns trading at Chicago Board of Trade. There are people with Dalmatian patterns. There's people with, you name it. They went to a cloth store, and they bought reams of some wild, weird type of cloth, took it to the Board of Trade and said, make me jackets. The Board of Trade provides the jackets. And so everybody that works for such and such clearinghouse on options wears the same jacket. But you can see those individuals out there with weird colors. They bought a seat which means they go in, they trade with no commission. They just have permission to go out there and scream. No commissions. They buy, they sell, they buy, they sell, they buy, they sell. No commissions. And very exciting. Options purchased on an exchange are considered safer than forward contracts through a bank, because these clearinghouses. I had lunch with a trader from Chicago Board of Trade. That's why I'm using him as an example. Although the foreign currency options are mostly traded through Chicago Mercantile Exchange, but he told me that the same thing applies. The clearinghouse, the Chicago Board of Trade or the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, acts as a barrier of guarantee between the buyers and the selling people. I mean, the buyer and the seller in transactions with each other, as a guarantor. And the guy I went to lunch with said he'd rather be in trouble with the mafia than ever in trouble with the Board of Trade. I think he was kind of joking, because the Board of Trade is not violent, but they have some of the best lawyers, and they will get the money out of you and your children forever if you make a stupid trade and you can't pay your side. And so what happens is people are very careful, because they will have to honor anything they do. And so that Board of Trade guarantees that option, and they will pay it if the other person can't pay. Like if you made $1 million on a contract and someone didn't expect to have to pay $1 million to you, the Board of Trade and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange will pay you, and then they'll go after that person to get their money. So they're very, very safe, as opposed to a situation where you have a forward contract. It's not like a savings account where you've got insurance, and banks do fail. And so, just saying, another difference between buying a forward contract at a bank and at and say buying futures or options at an exchange is a flexibility difference. The exchange traded options are regulated, not regulated like government. I don't mean that. I mean very, very strict. If you ever have looked at a contract for, say, cotton futures or corn futures, they tell you the grade of cotton, what railhead or port it must be delivered to on a certain date, and it specifies a certain amount of cotton. So it's a fixed thing that people trade, one thing that's identical. Whereas when you deal with a bank, you can make a very flexible contract. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you can have it for the exact dollar amount that you need to pay or receive. You can set it up for the exact time. So maybe you really need it in 45 days. You can get it's flexible with the bank. So there's some differences. I love options. I've invested in options. The contracts you can put together. You can put together contracts that will ensure that you make money if they go down or go up, but not if they stay in the same place. And you can have contracts that make you money if it's going to go up and not down. And I mean, really, really fun. Really, really fun. And I've traded a lot of them. And I started because I wanted to know what to tell my students, and what not to do and what to do. And then I got addicted. It's very, very fun. You can control a lot of currency or a lot of stocks for a small investment. Now, the key is, if you don't know what you're doing, don't ever write options. Buy them from people who wrote them, and that's what you do. Okay, so I'm just kind of leafing through the rest of the chapter. Arbitrage, what's that? Um, arbitrage is making money off the difference in prices. And with today's computers, you and I can't do it because computers are doing it. It used to be that somebody could notice a 1 cent difference in the exchange rate for the dollar versus the pound in London versus New York, and it was a 1 cent difference, but they could buy in one market and sell in the other market and make money when you bought millions of pounds. Now the banks have computers, and the computers see the differences and instantly make those trades, and when they do, the markets adjust to equal. Just supply and demand. I am debating whether to provide another video showing you how to do this. I may. The book gives you examples. But anyway, arbitrage. That's making money off the difference in prices, where you buy in one market and sell in another, or you buy and sell in three markets. So the most common is the two-point arbitrage, like London to New York, but you could have London to Paris to New York and trade a variety of currencies and come out to where you've made money. And in the process of buying and selling in the different markets, you are affecting the price in those markets in the direction of equality, so that the first person to arbitrage takes away the opportunity for anybody else. Okay, let's see. I think this gives you a good view. Hopefully, if you followed and listened, it's not as good as being able to stand there in front of you in class and make faces and wave my arms and stuff. But I'm not writing as much as I'm talking. But the nice thing about this is you can go back and you can play it again if you didn't get what I said. You can wait until the exam and watch it a second time before the exam. But hopefully this will give you some background as you're going through the chapter. I do expect you to read the chapter. Okay? I expect you to work those problems that I've assigned. But at least this gives you a bit of an overview. I'm going to have another video that I'm going to post this weekend explaining why currencies change, which is basically in chapter 12. So read carefully, work the problems. I think I had through in chapter 11, it was through 12. And then anything beyond that, I don't need to worry about that. So most of this is just basic stuff you should be able to just find and put that together and work them all up, and I may or may not collect them next week. Okay? And then chapter 12, that's coming up in another lecture where it's called, the chapter is called Exchange Rate Determination, and I'll tell you the basic things that cause exchange rates to change, and it'll surprise you, I think. Or maybe it won't if you've studied economics. All right. See you at the next video.